Saint Peter, patron saint of resin, please let this final pour be successful, because if it's not, I'm out of resin, and I'm out of time. Praise be to shop time. Hi, I am Nick D. Clements, and I used to make stuff like this. I somewhat dread having to change my bandsaw blade. I think that's true for a lot of people. But I do have one small trick that does make it a bit easier, and that's the use of a small clamp to hold the blade to the bottom pulley while you stretch it over the top. So now I need to level off the bottom of my giant chunk of broken wood, and my first thought was to just do this on the bandsaw. But as I started to make the cut, it just didn't feel right. And that's the #1 rule when using power tools. If it doesn't feel right, just stop. So instead I took it over to the chop saw, where I felt I could get a lot more control and a much more level cut. I just held it tight with a scrap piece of wood and slowly made the cut. And then I waited for the blade to completely stop before removing the wood. And then I took it back to the bandsaw, cutting it vertically, chopping off the corners and making it into more of a cylindrical shape. Attempting to prevent any flat spots from forming, I made a nice soft space where I could safely set the eye down. I decided to cook the eye now so I wouldn't risk deforming it when I attached the tail. And again, to prevent flat spots, I made a little bowl with the tin foil inside of a muffin tray to set it in. As I was making the tail, twisting the clay to mix the colors, I found the look of the twist to be really cool, and that kind of became my signature style for sculpting Sam. Now for the magic, Sculpey Bacon Bond. This stuff lets you attach unbaked clay to baked clay. If you've ever seen some really amazing clay figures and wondered how they made those, this is how. Well, this and a lot of talent. You may remember me making this box in the glue bottle bucket video, and what it's actually going to be used for is floating the Septiceye in the resin above the splintered wood. Now normally when you float something in resin, you can just put a layer of resin, set the object on top of it, and then fill it up the rest of the way with resin. But since I want to float this pretty much on its tail, I can't really just set it there. So my idea is to basically, with this box, rig it up in mid-air where I want it, fill it up with resin about halfway up the tail, let that set enough to where I can remove the rigging, and then fill it up with resin the rest of the way. Should give it the appearance that it's floating in midair in the resin. Okay, this thing was never gonna work. Maybe if you wanted a crystal clear casting, but even then you'd have to be really experienced not to end up seeing those layer lines. And in my case, I actually want quite a few bubbles. I want a lot of life and swirls. So it really needs to happen all in one pour. So while trying to suspend it, and maybe even just trying to suspend it with maybe a fish line instead of a big flexible hose, is still a valuable idea, in my future attempts after this inevitable failure, I actually ended up using what I'm about to mention next. Now I did have some ideas about using clear resin rods, which I did a video on, it may or may not be out yet, and it had mixed results, but I still think the idea is pretty cool, because when you put resin in resin, it pretty much disappears, but in my case, you could still see the resin rod from a few different angles. So this way I'm going to try this rigging method, and we'll see how it goes. So first, I need to basically make the mold around the splintered wood. Instead of just putting it in a cup or putting it in a container, you basically just make the mold around the object with some packing tape, saving yourself a lot of resin. I want to go thick enough to where it's watertight, so too much resin doesn't leak out, but I don't want it so thick that I can't still see in it and see what I'm doing to add in the details. I'm going to seal up the bottom with some electrical tape, pulled really tightly, try and get as tight of a seal as I can. I had the thought that maybe I should try and reinforce the tape wall with some skewer sticks. This also turned out to not really be all that necessary. Alright, now I'm going to make like a sheet of tape, and I'm just laying it out on this cutting board because it'll easily peel off of it. There, nice sheet of tape. Way better way. Alright. Time for the first pour. I'm pretty nervous. I'm just gonna screw this whole thing up. First, I'm gonna make up some green dye. Very Dow High Charger green. 1, 2, 1, 2. Has a very low odor, but no reason not to protect the old lungs. I have to very carefully pour as far away from the rigging of the eye because I don't want to fuse that rigging onto the eye. Nope, this isn't going to work the way I want it to. What to do? Is this gonna work? Oh no. I don't remember. The camera cut off right as I did 4. It doesn't look like I had any activator. Can't get any worse, can it? 1, 2, 3, 4. At this point, I've completely given up trying to float the Septiceye in the resin. So now I'm just trying to basically balance it in the middle, pushing it down into the splinters and hoping the thickness of the resin will at least keep it upright. Somehow, it's actually not a complete disaster yet, but I still have 2 full cups of green resin and I don't want to waste it. So I just pour that on top as well. Now if I had waited a bit for the resin to begin to set, I could have got a nice green layer on top with only a little bit of bleed into the clear, and it would have looked really cool. But I did it way too early, and the color completely took over, making the whole thing a dark green.
Okay. Well, it's fused to the table, which is great. And it's way, way too green.
Alright, so it's Monday at noon. The show's on the 29th. So I have like 9, 8, 7 days to make another one. So now I have something I can practice with. I can test cutting it out, test sanding it, seeing how that's going to work. I can make it a bit smaller. I thought my eye was a bit big, and it definitely is a bit big, especially when you get the refraction of the resin. I have a new chunk of $5 oak that I can smash, so I can take my frustrations out on that. We can do this. I can do this. It's still cool. You can't really see it. This time around, instead of just trying to cut the base into a cylindrical shape by hand, I cut out a circle from a scrap piece of wood, and then I'm gluing that to the bottom of the base, and this will give me a guide that I can push up against to when I'm cutting it out on the bandsaw. I also improved my technique for making the eyeball, making Sam. I made 5 of them throughout the course of this thing, so I got pretty good at it. But here, for the iris, I, 1, used a piece of parchment paper so it'd be easier to peel off, and 2, used a piece of the flexible armature, basically as a little cookie cutter, to make a perfect circle. Moving on and testing out my resin rod idea as a way to attach Sam to the base. And no, my hands are not suddenly giant. I've just made another Septiceye Sam, this time a much smaller one, basically to just take a step back and try and test all this out on a smaller scale. I'm now using a syringe to inject colored resin into the clear resin. This is the same technique that Secret Wood uses to make the miniature worlds inside all of their rings. Although the secret is still very much a secret, I still have absolutely no idea how they make such amazing scenes in the resin with resin. And as much as I'm for an open maker community and sharing techniques and tricks, I think Secret Wood's secret might be one worth keeping. When Peter tried this out on his channel, he found that the foam pads of the micro mesh caused all of the edges to get rounded over. And normally that's what you're after, but in this case we really want to try and keep all of these edges as sharp as we can. So I am going to try and remove one layer of the micro mesh and then just mount it on a board. And it appears to be just about that easy. Alright, a bunch of separated micro mesh. Can you buy it not on the foam? I know you can buy them on tongue depressors, which I have some of those, but I don't know. This works, and then I still have foam ones if I need them. Alright, so I've been sanding this guy for about an hour and a half. It's the most sanding I've ever done on anything. I am not a big sander. It is just so boring. I usually just use the power sander for a few seconds and call it good. Most of my stuff is never very smooth and well sanded. I don't pay that much attention to finishing. I like to get the project done and usable. But this, I need it clear.
So I've been sanding it, going through all the different grits, something I've never done, and it's super smooth, that's for sure. And it did definitely started to get clear, but it's still very milky. It's not that crystal clear I'm hoping for. Maybe with 5 more hours of sanding, who knows. So I'm a bit discouraged. I know it should work. I just don't know if I have the patience to make it work, but I'm gonna try running it on the buffer and seeing what that does, seeing if that speeds it up or if it just makes any kind of difference at all.
Look at that. Hooray for the buffing wheel. That's incredible. I still don't think it's sanded enough, but that's really good to know. That it might not look like it's gonna work and then you throw it on the buffer and then in 2 seconds it's like, oh, that is so awesome. While Secret Sam number 3 was curing, I still had some time and some resin left, so I decided to work on number 4, just so I could keep my options open. I was really pleased with how Sam came out on this one, and the base was pretty cool as well, so I was excited for its potential. And I was able to get some use out of my rigging box, using it to hold up Sam while I glued it to the resin rod. I tried putting the resin in the fridge to slow down the curing process. Really, for this final attempt, in the words of Count Olaf, look away, look away. It's definitely getting warm. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's safe to say it didn't go that well, but no reason to completely throw in the towel, so I moved forward, still trying to add some color. But by the time I was ready, the resin was pretty much a solid block. And unfortunately, if I had just abandoned trying to add color and focused on the resin, I might have been able to remove all the bubbles that had formed around Sam, which is pretty much what destroyed this piece. God damn it. So, I like shortcuts. If there's an easier way to do something, I'm usually all for it. And things like hot glue, super glue plus activator, an instant bond, it doesn't get much better than that. I'm not huge on finishing a project. I'll give it a quick palm sand and then maybe hit it with one coat of lacquer. Definitely no more sanding, definitely no more multiple coats. I just want to get it done and get it usable. But when it came to this resin adventure that I began, it was my understanding that the only way to get resin clear again, once you've cut it or sanded it, was to spend 2 hours, 3 hours, meticulously sanding it, one grit after the other, all the way up to 12,000. And I accepted that's the way you had to do it. You put in the time and the effort, and you'll be rewarded with resin that is clear, if not clearer than when it was originally casted. But you know what? There's a way easier way. You want to see a magic trick? That's it. That's all you have to do. Just brush on some more resin and all the cut marks, all the sand marks, they go completely invisible and it becomes crystal clear. It's really amazing. Now, if you combined 3 hours of sanding and a final coat of resin, that's the best result you're gonna get. But if you don't want to bother sanding, or you just want to sand for a few seconds, go ahead, do that, and then just hit it with a coat of resin and it'll still look amazing. Now in the back of my mind, I kind of knew this would work. Just that resin disappears in resin. It's the same concept that I had for my resin rods. In a recent video, Peter Brown scratched one of his resin projects with a utility knife, and he simply painted on some more resin, and in the camera at least, it completely disappeared like magic. But I wanted to do this to the best of my ability, so I accepted that sanding was the way to go. So I put myself in the mindset that I have to do that amount of work to get it to look good. And that's a good thing. You should be willing to go the extra mile, put in the extra work for the things you love. Oh, come on. That's why you don't work outside. But I gotta admit, being able to get the same result in 2 seconds versus 2 hours is pretty awesome. Alright, well, it's done. With a bit of time to spare, like 12 hours or so. I even managed to make a box, so if I am actually able to give it to him, hopefully it'll survive the ride home. It's made of really thick cardboard. The edges are electrical tape, and I'm not 100% pleased with that, but it doesn't look horrible. And I got a strip of foam. Lisa also suggested I make Wishu, his girlfriend, a little pendant. And she likes cactuses, so I made a little secret wood cactus. And I put it on a pendant. And I made a little box for that as well. And this came out pretty good, and it only took me 2 tries. It's pretty cute. So hopefully she likes that. So yeah, this video is all over the place. If you're actually seeing it, that's impressive. I'm impressed because I have no idea how I'm going to put all this together, but I've learned a ton taking this really deep dive into resin this month. Got to know West Systems epoxy resin very well. The yellow amber look works in this situation. I still think I would have liked to have seen what it looked like clear, and if I could have injected my own color into it. Given the circumstances, I am very pleased with this final result, but I just don't think that the West Systems is actually capable of doing a pour that thick and have it as clear as this one. I'm thinking this is about as thick of a pour as you can get and still have it come out clear. I am impressed. The first one that I really thought was just a total failure, after I cut it out, it's not too bad. It's definitely very dark, but you kind of get up close on it and you really can inspect it and see what's going on. So this one isn't a fail. This one worked out. And then I really do like the little one. I like how clear it is. I think this might be cool on like a cane. There's like a cane topper, or a stick shift knob might be cool too. And this is the combination of 2 hours of sanding and then a brushed on additional coat of resin. That came out really nice. But yeah, that shortcut of just being able to cut it, sand it, shape it, and then put on another coat of resin and have it go crystal clear again is just awesome. My 4th attempt was a big failure. Spilling resin everywhere. I would have been better off just accepting that it'd be yellow and just pouring it, because I really liked the sculpt on this one. I liked how twisty and curly the tail was, and the wood breaks were really cool. I mean, it's still cool looking, but it's not. You can tell it's a mistake. There's a huge gap line all the way across, and there's some unset resin in here too, so it's really sticky. That's why I have it in some plastic wrap at the moment. But I got 1, and that's what's really important. I mean, I got 3. I got a lot. I got a lot of really awesome stuff out of this experimenting. Some furniture polish really puts a nice shine on this West Systems. I have this opportunity to try and give something to Jack, and I really wanted to make something impressive, and I think I did. I think I am very happy with what I've produced, and I'll be very excited to see the show tomorrow. Whether or not I can even give it to him, the show should be pretty awesome. So I'm going to go to bed.
Jacksepticeye.
Okay, I know last time I put a lot of these gifts in my story on Instagram every time after each show, but we keep running out of time every time I do this, so I'm going to put some, but I can't put all of them. I'm sorry.
He got it! Jacksepticeye, Sean McLaughlin. He has my secret Septiceye Sam in his possession, and I couldn't be happier. To Jack, on the extremely minute chance you might see this, just thank you for all that you do. Your show is fantastic. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to go, and to be in the front row. I've never been in the front row of anything, and you and your show were absolutely worth it. I'm so glad you received Secret Sam. It was a thrill to make, and it was super awesome seeing you holding him. My wife screamed when she saw the picture, and I almost crashed the car. Well, not almost, but it was still very exciting nonetheless. I hope I get another opportunity to meet you, but for now, I'm just happy to know that you can enjoy something I've made because I certainly enjoy all that you've created. A special thanks to Peter Brown for being such a good sport. If you've somehow never seen his channel Shop Time, please do check it out. And if you want your own St. Peter candle, there's a download link in the description to a PDF that you can print off, and it should fit a standard dollar store prayer candle. I know this was a long one, and I know talking about how long it was is making it even longer. But if you watched the whole thing, if you watched any of it, thank you. Your time is precious, and the fact that you would spend it watching me do anything, let alone watch me make something that I didn't even know how to make when I started, is amazing. So my sincere thank you for watching. Once again, I am Nick D. Clements. If you're wondering, Nick is short for Nicholas, and the D stands for Dean. Anyway, I'm off to make something else. And now we wait for the dog to be quiet so I can finish the video.